In this week's episode, we're talking to George Vou. George is a three-time startup founder, and he's currently the CEO and co-founder of the Mighty Kitchen, a plant-based food company that him and his business partner, Luisa Sophocleos, launched in 2019. The Mighty Kitchen has won multiple awards, including the Cyprus Innovation Awards and the International Food Expo's Big Business Break Award in 2023. They've also won platinum at the Greece Vegan Awards, and personally, I call it the best plant-based chicken in the world. Join us as we talk about innovation, entrepreneurism, company culture, and the future of the plant-based food industry. Welcome to the Business Mentor Podcast. Tell me about you. Who you are, where did you grow up, and what was your journey coming up to the food industry and where you are now?
So I'll keep to the condensed version. I mean, look, background is mainly, so I grew up in and around, like to link it to food, I grew up in and around like restaurants and takeaways and stuff. Obviously, like the classic story, granddad was first generation immigrant into the UK, started off how they all do, fish and chip shops, takeaways and so on. Worked his way up, ended up having his own spaces and so on. Yeah. But then I deviated, obviously. I mean, it was when I was a kid working in there, I got to learn what happens and how things function, but then went into sports myself, semi-pro sports, and then into like marketing, business development kind of side of things. And then always been super entrepreneurial. So like uni, I had my own company afterwards. And I always talk about this later on, like the learnings we go through. So like messed things up a little, did well, messed things up a little bit, went through the cycle then of going into corporate and building myself up through that process. And then obviously when you've got the entrepreneurial bug, it hits again. And for the last 12 years now, I've been like fully like building my own businesses. My last corporate gig though was in FMCG, like fast moving consumer goods. So it was in drinks, not food, but the link is there. Then went into tech, web mobile tech, and then kind of married the two, I guess, in terms of food technology. But essentially, like that's been my pathway up until now, like where we are today.
Fantastic. So what was the beginning of food technology? So you worked going back, you worked at the fish and chip shops from what age?
Yes, I've worked like part-time gigs from like 12 years old. You had to from then. There was no, like that was what we did. But if you look at the food, like it's funny because we say food tech, but essentially like the process and what we're creating, it sounds fancy because parts of it we're obviously doing like a lot of testing, like we're testing texture, we're working on bits and pieces there, but it's food tech, but we're in food, right? On the consumer side, we're in food, 100%. And I think a lot of people also don't, because with our space as well, they're like, oh, they're making something that's like chicken and it's, but it's not, and it's from plants. And I think it's something alien. Like if you look at 95% of your food, it comes through a big factory because of hygiene, because of health reasons, because of different processing technologies to be able to pump out that kind of output. It's nothing like alien in that sense. But on the consumer side, like I said, it's absolutely about the fundamentals of food. It's like, how do we service our partners like yourself and others? How do we work, like what does the end consumer customer, like the home consumer, expect from us or expect from you as your end consumer? So there's a lot of stuff there that we dig deeper into and we try to understand and best serve our customers.
Tell me how the Mighty Kitchen was born.
How Mighty began. So I personally was like hardcore meat eater, which is why I find it funny when people say to me, oh, no, me, I could never, because I used to eat like everything from snails to brains to like livers to like, there was nothing hardcore, like every day of the week, multiple times a day. But around 2014, I decided to actually, to be fair, my brother started it, and then I was like, okay, this is interesting. We used to train quite a lot together for selfish reasons at the beginning, because we looked at like muscle recovery times, lack of, obviously there's more inflammation usually in animal-based foods. And so we started reducing, and in the end, I was on this pathway to like not eating meat and then fully vegan and have been like for 10 years now. But I was working on previous companies, and it happened that around 2017, I think, 2018, I was in the US. And it happened to be that I was in Boulder, Colorado, which was one of the first Whole Foods that served Beyond.
Nice, okay.
And Beyond were doing like a pop-up and taste testing.
Yeah.
And so I went there and I was like, what the hell is this? No, I don't eat meat. And then I tried it and I got super interested. And then winding down, like the tech startup that we had from there, my next kind of move was like, okay, how do I move into stuff, where am I going to dedicate like the next decade of my life minimum, potentially, right? So I wanted it to be like really in this space, a space that fascinates me, that challenges me, and obviously makes an impact.
Yeah.
And I got into learning, I got into starting to put the beginnings of a team together. I did have a concept, obviously, like looking at Beyond and some of the early companies, they were like bringing small bits of like mints together in like a burger or a sausage. We felt there was space for whole muscle. Like, so we looked at chicken, but then we also liked the idea a lot of regionalizing.
Yeah.
So that's why one of our first products was gyro from here.
Yeah.
And I always remember that people think like those, I mean, there was a market research process, but people imagine like this business plan, this market research. Literally the gyro decision was like, I called my sister and I said, what do you miss eating? Because she also stopped eating me. And I said, if there was one thing that's not available now, and she goes, oh my God, gyro, and it started, and then we probed and looked at the potential of it, and that's kind of how we began.
Amazing. So the inspiration came from seeing something from abroad, understanding there's a need, there's a gap in the market. I mean, back in, I think, 2018, that there was almost nothing around, right?
Beyond launched in the UK in 2019. So if you think Europe-wide, there was, it was very, very new then.
Amazing. So you were really at the forefront. When was Mighty launched?
Mighty went to market late 22. So we started in 2020.
Yep.
COVID affects everyone in different ways. For us, because we have a bit of a, we do everything, all the technology, everything happens in Cyprus, but we contract manufacture at another facility abroad. And our plan was like, there's no problem, right? So Louisa, my co-founder, was like, I'll fly twice a month, I'll go set it up. And then like for the first time ever, airport bans. So like you couldn't move. So we were like the first versions, we were running trials through like iPads, the factory technicians showing us, and Louisa kind of doing remote adjustments. And our R&D process took a couple of years, and then we commercialized late 22.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I opened a listing in COVID as well. It was, couldn't even find
feels like it's
electricians.
Feels like it's been around longer.
2nd of June.
Like in a nice way,
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe you won a fund. You won a, tell me about that, which help you get started.
Yeah, so we got started anyway with some of our own money, like which so it's different ways. I know we were talking about this a little bit before, but there's obviously in the early stage growth of, especially if we look at it from a startup perspective, I think a lot of people overly focus on the money at the beginning. There's a lot of stuff you can do with limited funds to begin with, and we started obviously like just putting some of my own money and whatever I had available to push things forward. But we did obviously then go into like, we took the competition grant track in a way, and because of the space we're in, there's a lot more interest in that. So in anything to do with like sustainability, kind of scalable technologies, environmental side of things, there are programs, there's programs for other stuff as well, but we chose to focus on this. We went into Climate Kick actually at the beginning. So Climate Launchpad, Climate Kick, and we won a couple of non-dilutable, like non-equity kind of funds from there. Smaller amounts, but really helpful to get us kicked off. And then we did actually, I give praise to this because it was one of the first times that there was a program launched by the Cyprus government, which was focused and tailored towards startups, and it was actually run like it was tailored for startups. So I remember going to like, you submit the initial process, but then in the judging panel, it was like a pitch panel. So there were people from the space who were probing in ways that you would expect in a startup kind of competition. That was cool. And we actually got a substantial amount from that, which really helped us because before I mentioned I was in tech, right? But without the tangible, without the physical product, the scale-up costs are completely different, and the things that can go wrong are completely different. So to be honest, that helped us loads in the R&D and scale-up process to get a product that was market ready. Yeah.
So you touched upon investors there as well, right?
Yeah.
Can you break it down in simple terms? Because there's many people out there that maybe have an idea or are launching a startup as we speak. And how did you go about finding investors, and break down what types of investments are possible?
Yeah. So obviously the initial kind of process that we went through, like, is like there's competition funds, there's grants. I recommend both, but I think like it's one of those things that you shouldn't depend on anything, but it's one of those things with the grants especially that they can take time and nothing's guaranteed, but it can also not come through. So
Yeah.
I would deploy kind of a grant plus, private funding kind of strategy there to not overly depend on one side or the other. You mentioned there are about types of funding. Obviously, it's like to keep it simple. There are angel investors, there are institutional funds, venture capitalists and so on. At the beginning, again, depends on your stage. Most of the time, you're probably looking at either smaller funds, early stage funds, or angels. How? It's very interesting. So this is something, I mean, like we're more experienced in this now, but I guess 12 years ago, to go back when you said if there's people like earlier stage looking at this and thinking about bringing money into their company, it's the best advice I ever got was kind of treat it like a very personal sales process, right? Don't get this, it doesn't mean because you have this idea and in your head you've blown it up to be this enormous thing that someone that you pitched is A, gonna get it, or B, just be as interested as you. So when you're looking for people, that there are a bunch of like, networks, resources and stuff online, but I just find like making personal connections to be the best way. So like a lot of my stuff is done through LinkedIn and my LinkedIn network is the way it is because of a lot of in-person events I've done in the past, a lot of like flying out to people, being present, doing competitions, meeting people through other people. And it's like we kind of treat, and I'm referring to Cyprus because the market's a little bit young, although it's progressing, right? It's a bit younger. We don't bump into, it's not like if you're in London, Berlin, or New York, San Francisco, you just bump into people all the time that, oh yeah, angel investor. It's not so common. But I would definitely advise that you, before or as you're in that process, don't overemphasize, like I said, that you need money. It's like you need to also have something of tangible value, a story interesting enough or of tangible value to attract those people in to deploy capital in your business.
So you touched upon the networking because it's one question I had for you.
Yeah.
I've noticed you're a natural networker. You're a great relationship builder, and I connected with you when you came to the restaurant a couple of years ago and really built a great relationship since then. Give me your tips around networking. Meeting, building those relationships. A mentor said years ago, you're one handshake away from changing your life.
Yeah.
Because you're one connection from finding the right investor, finding the right partner, finding the right key employee in your company.
Yeah.
How do you network? How do you go around and meet people?
I don't know, it sounds cheesy and obvious at the same time, but like just kind of approach conversations authentically, like look for places to connect with people. I am not good at pretending to be something that I'm not. So this is also part of the process of finding, investors that you match with, because I also think if I look at the angel investors or the VC or whoever we have in Mighty or in other companies, we also agreed. I can't think of a situation where I had someone in as an investor that was like, would have been a red flag to me as a customer. We vibed well in general. It doesn't mean you have to be best friends with all of you, but obviously depending on the nature of your business, you're looking for people who align with your perspective, your largely like your values and so on. So I'm also not, the funny thing is people mean this like conversational, I'll talk a lot, but I also don't do great in like these like blind networking event, where you're standing there. But one of the biggest tips I can give to this is if you go to a networking event where you don't know people, take a friend. Because there's nothing more awkward than just standing there by yourself looking how you can latch on.
What am I going next?
No, because a lot of the times it's just clusters of people talking, right? And so this is bad because I don't take my advice enough because I turn up to stuff by myself sometimes and I am that guy with the glass just standing there waiting. But I think in terms of like pursuing these kinds of events, because there are, and again, locally now, there are a lot of these events where you go to network, meet people in your space, in your industry. So it's great, like don't be scared to kind of and overcome a lot of people have their anxiety issues, they're shy, go and speak, but take a wing person. I think it helps a lot. And back to just last thing on this, on the online part is, I mentioned LinkedIn, but LinkedIn's also become a bit of a spam fest with people trying to become you have to treat it like you do in real life. Like I'm not like, hey, I'm George, hey, can I sell you something? It's like, how are you? How are you doing? Talk to me. Look. And then you'll see if there's a potential to collaborate. And I think it's the way I approach online is that like that a lot as well. I used to do it from, I don't know, even Facebook days. You know, I see somebody, that's Luisa, who's my co-founder, was a Facebook friend of mine before we connected and built the business because she won a competition. And I thought, that's cool. I want to connect with this person. And then spoke to her, you know, years later.
Yeah.
So I believe in that, you know, don't be shy to approach these things, but also don't be too full on. Yeah.
As you said, LinkedIn has become spam. You know, there's just these spam emails, and it's more like, I want to sell you this. Do you want an SEO? Do you want a website?
Yeah.
Rather than just saying, hey, how you doing? I noticed this on your profile. Tell me more about that, and connecting with people first, right?
Yeah.
And a golden tip that I heard about networking years ago, let's say we go together to a networking event, we speak like this, and you keep you keep an open position there.
Yeah.
Because if you're just face to face, people are uncomfortable to come in, right?
Yeah.
But if there's an open kind of gap, then someone will come in, shake a hand, and you start meeting someone. Perfect. So tell me a bit about your the values of the Mighty Kitchen. What do you stand for? What's the epicenter that is beaming out there slowly into Cyprus and other countries beyond?
There are three main kind of areas that kind of come together to create like what Mighty began as and what it's moving into. And there was interest again from, and I say this is slightly weighted differently between maybe even each co-founder, maybe even each team member, but those spaces are, the intersection is human health, animal welfare, environmental sustainability, right? So those are the three kind of primary points. And then just generally as a company, we have like, you know, brand values as things just like I don't want to come across full on tree hugger here, but the truth is just be kind, because why be a dick? You know, it's just be a good person, treat people as you would like to treat yourself. We always say, we have a line in the culture doc as well, that average doesn't do well here. And I don't mean that like there's a lot of places you can be average and it's fine, and if it's a phase of life or a choice. But for us, it's like we wanted from the beginning people who come in and who want to make a difference. And I hear this sometimes even on when we're interviewing people. And recently someone said, it's like, I want, what's it called? I said, why are you looking? Because I want somewhere where I can build my legacy or so. And it might sound grand, but they see us and other companies that pitch this kind of outward, you know, bigger vision to them as well as something that they want to be a part of. So it's definitely something we're pushing as well.
Great. Well, to dig a bit deeper in that, because I've noticed you've got generally a stable team, and we spoke a bit about that earlier, that, you know, it's much more expensive and more damaging to a company to continuously be hiring people rather than keeping good people. How do you create the team culture?
I believe loads in this. I think I've talked about this before, and I have a slide on one of my decks which I have a quote on which I can't remember if I said it or if I borrowed it from somewhere, so I say maybe me at the bottom. But basically, it's along the lines of a lot of this culture thinking, that culture happens whether you choose to mold it or not. So, and this counts as not only in your business, in your friend groups, in your family, so you take on either a default culture. Think about school. You know, the loud kid would control like the situation a little bit more. There were things the group would do. Someone would say, this is wrong. That's culture building, right? Even as young kids. So we try to consciously build that here with parameters, not by policing, like, hey, we don't do that. Hey, we don't. But there's a central culture doc. We show it to people. They buy in or they don't. And if they don't, then it's harder, obviously, to be a part of this. But generally, that's the idea, that we have a set of values, a set of a direction, a mission that we're all moving towards and that's how we go about that. And I value it hugely, and I think, again, not to take a dump on anyone else, but I think a lot of companies don't quite fully appreciate, not understand, because everyone understands it, the value of investing in culture and being a place that people want to come and work, and being a team that people want to work with. It's much more, again, cost-wise, like keeping good people is much cheaper than having to like rehire all the time. And of course, like you said, like we have a pretty stable team. We have like lost a couple of people along the way, sometimes to better opportunities. It's everyone's on their personal quest as well, and I respect that, and that's we can't. That's part of the culture as well. If you need to go, you go. We don't try and force you to stay. But it is something definitely that we've built in. We are a place like I'm really happy that whenever something opens up with us, we're always getting recommendations also from the people that are here or from partners or collaborators, which is a good sign. So yeah, for sure, it's something we focus on a lot, and I'm really happy where we are with that at the moment.
Brilliant. Look, it's a catch-22 because sometimes if you're great at investing in people and you're building and developing people, it comes to a point where sometimes they want to fly away. I remember a quote, CFO says to the CEO, he says, what if we train people really, really well and they leave? And the CEO says, what if we don't train them and they stay? How do you view the future of plant-based meats? You're in this journey now 4 or 5 years. You started almost 6 years ago. Things are changing fast. There's a lot of competition. I think that the demand is definitely growing. How do you view it?
It's an interesting space because I talk about this with our sales team as well, that it's a new product in a new category. So you think about times that's happened in the past, it's not a common thing. So it's quite hard also how you build, the story, how you build the narrative, like how you push the product out there. At the end of the day, we kind of went full circle and came back to basics, that it's an ingredient. Because our plain chicken strip, for example, is one of our best selling products. And we really kind of go out to people and just try to explain that it's like, as you would use a piece of chicken, as you would use a piece of tofu, it's that, and nothing more complicated.
And I've said to every single customer that comes into Elysian, I say, it is the best plant-based chicken in the world. There's so many things out there that they're not almost edible. This I'll give to any meat eater as well, and they'll say, I can't, if I don't tell them it's plant-based, they can't even tell the difference.
So I appreciate that loads, and this is where you say that the direction of plant-based is that as well. So the research says as well that because everyone assumes that it's a vegan product, it's a vegan vegetarian, they're obviously a big part of our valued customer base, but the mass market is the flexitarian, right? So the consumer, and people ask about flexitarianism, is basically the consumer that eats everything, but a couple of times a week says, do you know what, I don't feel like that, I don't feel like meat, but I don't want to sacrifice on taste, texture, protein. But we're competing in those spaces where the consumer's looking for us. And also as a product, we're just trying to be as versatile and top of mind as possible. So we see where the space goes. Definitely there's a lot of potential, there's iterations that are happening there. There's also, because of this journey we've gone on with the plant-based meat, it's also opening up conversations to other products or potential product lines that we might go into, because now we're building that trust with our customer base. And it's funny because if you look at vegan veggie in general, it's again, I'll go to some of the conversations we have sometimes with customers who aren't necessarily their own consumer. And they're like, we've had this conversation a lot of times with outlets that are just like, I just put vegetables on the menu. Okay, that's cool, but is that what your consumer wants? They're only 2-3%. And at the beginning, I understand why I'm not this, at the beginning you feel that it's a small part of the pie, but now again, data is saying that the person who's vegan, veggie, or doesn't want to eat that night, they will control where the group goes. So you're not losing out on me, you're losing out 8 people of my family because George isn't happy. So it's that kind of thing. And that's, it's definitely, mechanics that we're trying to explain and push forward, and it can go, where we want it to go, I think.
Absolutely. Forward. That actually led to my next question perfectly, which is, any advice you would give to restaurateurs or hoteliers? Because as you said, some are reluctant to put on the menu, or they'll just add a couple of options there, but the demand is growing. And we're also in an Orthodox country here in Cyprus, and many people become vegan for the fasting period. Right?
Or for small parts of it.
Exactly. So demand grows there as well. Any advice for them?
I think we all want the same thing, right? So it's they want to please their customers at the end of the day. They don't want something different. So we're already starting from the same place. It's a matter of, and again, you can't force someone. We've seen it as well over the years. There are people who sometimes are ready now, partner, a hotel, a restaurant and so on. they are ready now. They get the chef or the owner has a vision and they're going to implement. Others have come back 6 months, 9 months later and said, come and let's have a look at it, and they're ready then. Others will be ready in a year. Like we're here, our purpose is to build these connections, help them to please like their customer base. And just more than anything, it's funny, we talk about this, all we ever kind of want is like, let us come to your kitchen. We have our chefs, let's do a cooking session. It's food, so I can talk to you for an hour on the phone, but there's no point. I might as well just come and we'll cook for you and we'll talk about it and you'll see if it fits. And if it doesn't fit right now, no hard feelings. We'll be back. We'll see you in 6 months or not. But yeah, definitely this idea though of having, we've gone past the era of there's a salad on the menu. And we've also gone, I think, operationally for outlets. They don't want to, George is here again, let's go get a block of tofu out and cook. You want something on your menu that's versatile, that you can keep in storage, that you can, and with us, with the whole plant-based chicken thing, is that whatever you have in chicken, like if you have a pasta dish, that has chicken in it, you can switch the chicken out and suddenly you have a veggie version with cheese or a vegan version where you place the cheese. So we're also trying to learn from them and be, to their needs, because operationally we need something that fits for our restaurants, our hotels, and then something that works for the consumer as well.
What marketing strategies have you used to get your product in the marketplace? Because I would say you've put the Mighty Kitchen in the top of the plant-based meats in Cyprus. What other countries are you in at the moment? And what marketing strategies have you used to really create a household brand? Because when I start explaining to my customers, we've got, like I said, the best plant-based chicken in the world, and we use it here in Stefano, we have it in our gyro, we have it in other dishes. They say, it's the Mighty Kitchen. Most of them already know. So what have you used to really make Mighty Kitchen almost a household name? We
believe, and it's something we're going to do a lot more also in the coming year now, because like you said, we're from here, we started here in Cyprus. We have product in Greece, in the UAE and in the UK, and the UK's actually been growing loads for us now as well. It's a focus of ours a lot for next year, and the process to replicate what we've done well here in Cyprus is great like that, because we hear it a bit of a cliche, but it's true. It's not for all products a test market, but it can be, to a large extent, because we're very, let's call it like westernized in our habit. Like people sometimes come into like the Southeast Mediterranean and realize that in terms of the way we do things, our eating habits and stuff, we might as well be stuck in between the Netherlands and France. I mean, like it's that's how we're not like a lot of like the rest of the region here, and obviously that's the British influence and so on. But then is created this opportunity to use it as a city in a bigger country in a way, and do testing, and so it's very experiential. Like the thing again, it's what works with food service, works with customers. They need to taste the product. I mean, that's there's no magic formulas. It's just literally like we get in front of you. So be that food festivals, at food trucks, when you're on like in the street, we've done taste testing where we follow around people with cameras and we basically just let people try the product. We chop up that content, we post it online where people interact with us. We're also very conversational online again, so people ask about stuff, they'll DM, like we get a lot of Instagram DMs, we get people asking where and how we can use the point. And so we're in that process of building out, our online presence a bit more, because again, people see us, I think sometimes they think we're bigger than what we are. So because the team's like literally just become 8 people now, 9 people, sorry now. And for a long time we were 5. And that's part of the process of growing. And just resource-wise, next year we're going to be able to deploy like a lot more into this and make sure people hear about us. And it's the same process again. Hear about us, try us. If you love us, stay with us. If you don't.
Any quote you live by?
Put this up recently, and Stella, who I work with, was like asking me about it. So it's I love this notion of principle over preference.
What does that mean?
It means basically that your principles are solid and you lead by those. Those are they can't change, or they change like very slightly, upon learning potential new information and so on. Whereas preference is very ad hoc. It's like let's just say we're on this topic, like let's say with the eating of meat, for example. For me, it's like my principle is that I know that I don't need to. But a preference might be, fuck, that steak looks really nice. So it's one of those wavering, and I can apply this to all walks of life, in like my relationship, my family, all of this is, it's like when you're at your most calm and content, you form your principles, and preferences are usually triggered in emotional states. So yeah, build in silent kind of thing, and then apply that out, to the rest of your life. That's what I think for that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that. I've never heard that before, and that's powerful because, like you said, emotions change day to day, and it can sway you. But if you've got your principles are solid and it's your foundation, then it's harder to move from there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any last thoughts to share?
I'm just thinking, I don't have last, I was thinking of a continuation of that as well. I don't know if it's applicable, but because whether you have your principles all figured out or so on, but I read this years ago and I loved it. It's like never make decisions in an emotional state, whether you're too happy or too sad.
Yeah.
So that's, I think it's one of those things, again, it's just try and get yourself into a state where you can function, normally, and then make a call on whatever it is. Any last thoughts in general? What to say? I don't know. It's been fun. I mean, this whole process has been fun. Obviously, we have a relationship from before. I know you said it's a lot more comfortable setting. I'll take it back to the the line of questioning for starting up entrepreneurship and starting new businesses. I love seeing people diving into spaces they're passionate about. I'd love to see, because we're talking also Cyprus first, and if this goes out further, like we're starting to actually see a difference from a decade ago where there was like 10 of us running around to every startup event that was going on, and now there's a, to use the word, again, but there's an ecosystem somewhat being built, and I would say don't close yourself up in your little silos, go out there, because there is actually like a really interesting like knowledge base there. There are companies here, there are big companies here now that started from small. So yeah, don't lock yourself up, like share your thoughts, share your ideas, talk with people, and just find, ways to start building, because that's what we want. I mean, a small place like this as well can become a lot more powerful, a lot more impactful if people get their heads down, build, create new stuff, retain talent here, bring talent here. It's one of those things that I love to see. And I mentioned networking. I'm online. I use LinkedIn. If anybody wants to reach out, like drop a message, I'm always happy to try and point people in the right direction. So, hopefully what I think is the right direction. I mean, yeah.
Brilliant. George, thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
Wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.